the one constant is they've always made unbelievable beer. And if anyone worth their salt says or disagrees with that, they actually don't know what they're talking about.
Thank you to our show sponsors, Electrical Industries. Electrical Industries is a Cape Town-based company, but operates on a national scale throughout South Africa. Electrical Industries specializes in food service and beverage dispense equipment and have been part of the specialty beer scene for the past 4 years. They have a small, dedicated team with a hands-on approach in the beer industry. Some of the equipment they stock: towers, taps, coolers, cold plates, regulators, couplers, growler solutions, kegs, fittings, and a wide range of spares and replacement parts. Another piece of equipment that they stock is the new FlowJet pump, which I've heard about. I haven't seen operate, but my goodness, I could have done with one of these when I was working in the industry a few years ago. What it does exactly is that it helps push your beer over a long distance from your keg to your tap. As is the case in most South African restaurants or shops, there's not a lot of space behind the bar. So restaurant owners are forced to put their beer far away, and unfortunately you do get disturbed beer or foamy beer. And what the FlowJet pump helps with is eliminate those bubbles. It's electric free, it uses gas, and it can pump beer over 100 meters away. So go check them out. If you want more information, go check out electricalindustries.co.za. That's electricalindustries.co.za. Cheers. Martin Tucker is known as the craft beer merchant, but is also responsible for running one of South Africa's biggest and most successful beer events, the Cape Town Festival of Beer. And we talked to him about what it takes to put together an event of this size and scale, and some highs and lows that he's learned from the past 10 years. We also look at local industry news relating to Devil's Peak and the advert that they came out with last week, and his advice to brewers within South Africa. We drink some great beers, some local, some foreign, and we really get stuck in. I'll let you guys enjoy the show. Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Beer Time. We're sitting here in my garden, of all places, in Camps Bay. We've got the beautiful ocean crashing in the background. We have the cars driving past. It's a late afternoon, and it's a perfect time for a beer. Let me waste no time in introducing my guest. He's been on the show before. I think it's been about a year, and he is none other than Mr. Martin Tucker. Hello, sir. Welcome back to Beer Time.
Thank you very much for having me, Troy. I'm very excited to be here in these beautiful surroundings with a furry feline next to us licking his.
That's our resident cat, and we've got some birds, but I think the sound is going to be perfect. So, Martin, you obviously the big thing we want to talk to you today about, I say as in there's a plural us, but it's just me at Beer Time. What I want to talk to you about is Festival Beer, and I debated this, how we were going to do this, and obviously last year I got you on the show before the festival so we could kind of promote it and talk about it. This year I thought we'd try a different angle, and that is, well, the festival's come and gone. You've packed the tent up, all the brewers have gone home. This was your 9th year, and I know that last week we had 2 weeks ago we had a bit of a catch-up over some dinner and some beers, and we said some pretty interesting stuff about the industry and what's happening, what's changing, how the festival has changed for you in the last 9 years. And I think we chatted about quite some interesting stuff, so I'd like to get your opinion on that. The reason why I'm keep talking so much is because I know that this is probably the only time I'm going to get any words in when you start talking, because it's going to be very difficult.
And holding my breath.
So tell us, this was your 9th year. Hello, Mr. Bird. Your 9th year. Tell us about that. What is the overall feeling? Do you think it was successful?
Numbers wise, we had a good few more people than last year. In terms of beers on show, we had more beers available again, which is obviously, a good achievement. We had a wider array of breweries again this year. It's a fiscal strike, by the way. And we had probably had a better overall spectacle in terms of layout and what we did with the festival, because for the first time in 9 years we moved the stage and the sound and all of that to face the other way.
I think it made a big difference.
It made a huge difference.
It felt like a whole new venue.
Spot on. And we had that feedback from a number of people. Those were probably the pluses. From the cons and the negative side, we listened to a lot of feedback from brewers who requested that over previous years they were giving away too many tasters and too many samples, and we decided to limit it this year. And at the end of the festival, we got feedback from brewers that because we limited the tasters now, everyone actually made use of all their tasting coupons as opposed to previous years when they didn't. So you just can't win in this game. You try and please everyone and you can't.
Well, on a positive note, I mean, at least you guys aren't just not listening to them. At least you're trying something new and trying to evolve the festival, which is kind of, I'm jumping the gun here in terms of finding a solution. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you getting shat on by birds?
Been shat on twice now. It's my lucky day today.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Why don't we come up with a beer collab called Bird Shit?
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, maybe we might need to change it.
Yeah, we'll just fuck off lager.
Well, so I mean, the positive thing is that you guys are changing, you are evolving, and I said it's to, I think it was on my previous guests, Buurman Brouwerij. I said that the good thing about festival beer is that you need to evolve in this game. If you are constant, or if you stand still and you're not evolving, you're a dead duck.
You're dying. So I think those are two great examples of human beings and brewers. Maybe don't always make the greatest beer, but it's improved 500%. They are probably the best fun to hang around with.
They're the most genuine guys, isn't it?
Correct. They put the most effort into their stand. They are literally a not-for-profit organization because they give away so much of their stuff. And they're the first people to send a WhatsApp after the festival. Thank you very much. They're the first people at the beginning of it. They're the first people to say, can we help you with this? Can we help you with that? Yeah. And look, I mean, we don't need that. We don't need any affirmation or any thanks or anything because it's still a business that we're running, but it just shows what type of guys they are. And their outlook on how to approach a festival and what it will do for your brand or your tap room or your beer or for feedback is the best, And they brewed a great collab with Kennel, and when they came up with that collab, again, I'm going to throw my own money into this. I'm going to brew this, and if we sell some, we sell some. If we just had 1,000 people taste it, that's awesome. And the one thing which is on one hand, again, a positive, on one hand, a negative, is this year we physically had a tally of how many tasters were given away by different stands when we collected the coupons. And in fairness, some guys who are uber generous and have big breweries or are not there for the money, they tended to give large portions and maybe didn't take, all the coupons they were supposed to. But it was a very good reflection of who was the most popular beer. Because of where we collected the most coupons from afterwards. So it's an interesting bit of information which I'll share with you in private because, again, you can't please everyone. And if I said something, then someone would jump on me. But I'll definitely tell you after this chat who had the most coupons.
And then you can follow me on Twitter to find out who Martin spoke about. Martin, do you know what we've done?
We haven't spoken about the changes in the festival.
No. Do you know what we haven't done? Which I actually, ladies and gentlemen,
we don't have an opener.
This is probably my first time where we've spoken.
Never fear.
And I haven't opened or cracked a beer. Let's jump in straight away. We've got a bit of a theme here, I like to think. Our first beer and our last beer, these are two of my favorites from the festival. So the first one, wait for it.
Oh,
it's a
It's a gusher.
A little bit of gusher, not too much. Actually, it's probably because I shook it up.
Yeah.
This is from Saggy Stone. It's their stout. It was the first beer that I think their brewer Matt put together. And I mean, I must admit, I've had this in my fridge for a while because I like to see how beers evolve.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Especially with stouts, dark beers, maybe high alcohol beers. They've put the style on the can here. It's an Irish extra stout with coconut flakes. So, Martin, I'm going to have a sip.
So I'm of the opposite. I've got a small little wine cellar type of thing.
Yeah.
And I tend to keep my beers in that at an ambient temperature, but a cooler one. And you'd be very surprised how many South African beers hold everything, maybe lose a bit of hoppiness over even a year. And something that someone's brought back for me that I really wanted to drink with my mates, I've left and it's from Italy or England and it's turned properly.
Oh, really?
So our beers are definitely, that's just a small indication that our beers are getting better. Cheers.
Mr. Tucker, thank you. That was close. So it's kind of like ignoring the elephant in the room, but not a negative elephant, but Saggy Stone really did bring an elephant to the festival. That was a stage. I mean, Liam who works for them was telling me that it used to be an old party bus and they converted it into a bar. I mean, I was interested in that.
So again, it's called the Gate Crasher, and Adrian Robinson, the owner of Saggy Stone, couldn't get a nicer bloke. Big family sort of affair. He runs his tap room with his wife and his kid, his daughters, and people who live on their farm, and he's just a hell of a nice guy. And you know, every event has an SAB gig rig or a Coca-Cola truck or whatever. So it's nice that one of the smaller brewers has invested in his own, you know, demonstrably big item. But once again, it gets bad feedback from some people going, oh, look at this. How much did they pay you for this? And it's like, actually, he offered to give it to us for, you know, pretty much nothing. So, you know, we can talk about the politics in the craft beer industry and what's good and what's not. But again, that's something that I really am a bit sick and tired of, you know. Rather just say, yes, that's cool. I wish I one day had a truck like that or could do a mobile bar. But it was his luck of the draw that he managed to find a old battered up party bus that wasn't being used and was standing on bricks and spent his own money to fix it up. And now look at the results. So good on him. Well done, Saggy Stone. And by the way, this beer is probably 800,000 times better than anything they started off with in the old days.
Yeah.
Although their chicken livers were world class.
Chicken liver?
Yeah, no.
Not chicken liver beer, just chicken livers.
No, just their chicken livers peri-peri, which you used to go and drink in the mountains near Robertson was
Can't say I've done that. You've touched on a few points now, which I like how my podcasts do kind of pivot, segue, evolve into different conversations. But before we go down that rabbit hole, I want to ask quite a simple rapid fire question. Doesn't mean you have to give me a yes or no answer, but have you ever thought about stopping the festival beer?
Financially, as owners of the festival, we have no sponsors or partners. In the first 3 years of the event, we did partner with SAB, who did contribute quite a considerable amount of both time and benefits in kind. Since those days, we are completely on our own. We've managed to make a small profit on the odd occasion. This year, we haven't even completed our recon because we're still waiting for different brewers to pay us for stuff and ice that was used and whatever else.
For sure.
So to answer your question, you know, we're going to lose a lot of money before we stop it because it's a great event for us. It's a great event for Cape Town. It's a great event for South Africa. It's a great event for beer. It's a great event for cider. It's a great event for everyone's families. And I think because of that, as long as we're not losing any money and it's not a full-time job for any of us, I don't think we would stop it. However, over the last few years, we've also had, you know, the carrot dangled in front of us and and offers to buy in or partner or purchase it or franchise it or do one in Durban and in Joburg, and we actually tried 2 in Joburg ourselves. And all of those haven't come to fruition because I don't think people understand what it takes to put on an event of this size and to keep the ethos and the spirit of what we're trying to do, with every stand being 3 by 3 meters, you know, not charging an exorbitant amount, not taking a percentage of the brewer's turnover, keeping the same food stands, you know, curating the beers that are coming, the new guys that are coming, kicking some other guys out, you know, and that's
It's not the, you know, from the discussions we've had and from, I've seen you guys work, you know, it's not just a bunch of Muppets, working on a festival who have no clue about the industry, no clue about events. You know, you guys have obviously given a considerable amount of thoughts and time and energy into, for example, a 3 by 3 space. You don't just suck these kind of things out of your thumb. So, I mean, it has evolved, and you guys are working at bettering the industry. And I'd go one step further when you said why the festival is good. I mean, I think it's an integral part of the beer industry. I think if there wasn't, I'm not just trying to blow smoke up your ass. It could be Joe Soap who owns the Cape Town Festival there. But I think a festival of this magnitude and of this meaning, I'll get to that now, is absolutely integral in what we want to achieve in the beer industry. And when I say meaning, you know, it's not just targeted towards your beer nerds, guys like me who will go on a Friday night and want to try all the tasters because they really do want to try all the tasters.
Yeah.
This is the stepping stone for the big 99% of the market, maybe not 99% because South Africa has a bit of a different socioeconomic or demographic. I don't know. I'm just throwing up big words here, Martin, to seem like I know what I'm talking about.
You lost me at hello.
So when I say meaning, you know, the Festival of Beer is that gateway for the person who does not know what a white stout is or a sour raspberry wild ale, barrel-aged stout. And I just think, you know, we actually need to look at the bigger picture. Again, not trying to push anyone into the limelight, but I think we need to look at these kind of events and just be like, they have to stay. We have to work together as an industry to put energy into it. Because if something like this was to end, if something like any festival had to stop, or people, social media influencers, people like, she hates that I say this, Lucy, she's got her blog. We've got Greg and Carl who have their Brian Beer Country. They've got their cookbook coming out. You know, if people like this who didn't actually make beer, but service the industry, if they had to stop and fall away, I think we can all just pack our bags up. And again, I'm not trying to like give myself props or yourself props, but I think people lose sight of that a lot. And just the bigger picture. And I think that we can, I'm thirsty now because I've been talking too much, but
I'll take over.
We can look at the bigger picture now. And I think we have to look at the bigger picture. I think also what you said, picking up what you put down, it must get tiring when people complain about trivial issues when there is just such a bigger picture to look at. But again, you know, different people have different things to work at and different businesses. And one thing I've just learned this year is that people just really are different.
Very much so.
But before you say anything, can I open the next beer?
Please do.
So we've got a bit of an Asian theme here. You've just done some travels to the east. I've done some travels.
Asia,
Let's start though with this gift. This was actually given to me by the Buurmanne. It's the Hitachino.
So it's imported by the guys who own Noble Hill Wine Farm, and they've got a little Mexican restaurant on their farm. They're from America and they live in South Africa and own a wine farm, and
Struggling to open up.
they've got a sort of a co-distribution deal with these guys in Japan who distribute their wine, and they said they would bring their beer into South Africa. They interestingly use a lot of rice in some of their beers. They've got a very nice dark rice beer, it's actually really, really nice.
People would have seen this beer. It is like you said, it is available in South Africa, just at select spots. What is the label there?
It's called a Dai Ale, and it's brewed with Fukuremikan orange and special hops. Please enjoy fruity flavor and rich taste, and imported and distributed by Noble Hill Wines, Klapmuts in Simondium.
Nice. 6%, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't give the ingredients, but as I said, I do know one of the big things about especially their dark one is that they use a lot of rice in it. I don't think they do it as an adjunct. I just don't think they probably have a lot of barley farms. Cheers.
So we've
Can I just get back to what you were saying there? So one of the things that the festival has taught me and my partners is we, without again sounding arrogant, we can literally tell you who's going to be a success eventually out of the festival and who isn't. Whose brewery is going to get a kickstart and use this as a platform to launch from, and who's just going to stay, as they are. We've been doing it for 9 years. I'm in the beer business myself. My partners own restaurants. So they get all the reps, they get all the guys coming. And it's very easy to see. And unfortunately, a lot of people have fallen by the wayside, probably more so than is healthy. But it's healthy for the other people who learn from those people who have fallen by the wayside, not to make the same mistakes. But the industry is definitely split in South Africa. There's all these guys who are starting now, or maybe in the last year or two, and they're the guys who started 9 or 10 years ago. So if you look at the theory of first in, is most successful, and then the Jack Blacks, the Devil's Peaks, the CBCs, via Polana, the Boston breweries, etc. Those guys have done well. Then you can split that up amongst people who have money and people who don't. And then you can split that up again into people who actually brew well and their marketing is good, or their marketing is good, and people who aren't. But what you can see at the festival is the people who use the opportunity to talk to 8,000 or 9,000 people, you know. And if you talk to those 8,000 or 9,000 people, I can assure you that even if you're not making 1 cent profit, in fact, you might be losing money. It's how winemakers have been doing it for 300 years. If people do not taste your wine, or people do not taste your beer, how the hell are they going to know about it? So until people start changing their mindset about how to approach a festival and how to make their stand more inviting and to get their brewers behind it instead of some promotional guy or girl, and to actually interact with people and tell them, this is why I started brewing. This is why I started my brewery. This is what I believe is best. No one's going to achieve anything. And we are not just a craft beer festival or a micro beer festival. We also have mega breweries, giant commercial breweries. So Stella Artois had a stand, and Erdinger had a stand, and Liffmans, and Lef, and Hoogharden, and those are giant global brands. Bitburger. So
I would imagine that a complaint would be from, some people saying you must just have craft beer, but one, I can understand where they're coming from, but two, like I said before, we need to get that other percentage of people who
drink gin and wine,
who just are scared or intimidated by the craft beer scene.
Yeah,
and it is a genuine thought process by some people. It's too intimidating.
And what a lot of craft beer nerds and snobs, as you called them earlier,
I am myself one.
Yeah.
Be careful.
No, but if you can't compare a beer and if you can't drink another one, you can't go on holiday. You can't go to another country. You can't go to a country that doesn't have microbreweries.
Yeah.
You can try find them like you did in Thailand and I did in Vietnam. Brilliant. Japan as well. You can go find them. But I can tell you now that every one of those mega global brewers, your Asahis, your Pilsner Urquells, your Hoogardens, your Gouden Carolus, your Budweisers, they started as small breweries. Maybe some people in the craft brewing industry see them as bad, but I can tell you now, those guys don't even bat an eye for what's happening in the craft beer industry in South Africa. And if they did, and they purchased a brewery like has been done with Stellenbosch and with Soweto Gold and a portion of the distribution thereof of Jack Black, it's to get a bigger foothold and to maybe they think that they can introduce more people to their beer via those beers. So I think if everyone just had this mindset of growing beer, let's grow the beer category. It doesn't matter whose, then the microbrewing industry is 0.4% of the total, and I just came up with that, but that's what I think it is. If that 0.4% of the total beer volume that is produced in South Africa, if that can go to 1% or 0.6%.
Well, I put this to Ross on my show 3 weeks ago from Jack Black. I said, can you imagine if it went to 4%, 5%?
Yeah.
Can you imagine what kind of landscape it would be in? Beer landscape. If
course.
the market was drinking 5%.
Ross would be driving like 8 Ferraris and 4 Lamborghinis. Yeah. So, but if you think about it that way, stay at 0.4%, stay at 0.5%. But if the beer consumption in South Africa is 10 billion hectoliters, whatever, and you grow the beer market and it becomes 11 billion, your 0.4% is more than it was before.
Yeah.
So you've grown. Whether you're 1% now or 2%, it doesn't matter. You've grown. You'll make more money. You'll employ more people. You'll buy more malt. You'll buy more hops. Your prices will come down in kegs. You'll have more buying power. More bars will stock you. There'll be more TV adverts. Just do it, you know. But again, if everyone wants to fight and everyone only wants to look out for themselves and it's dog eat dog, then that's another way to play it yourself too.
Yeah, which...
Not very IPA-ish.
It is actually delicious. It's got a bit of that orange zest. It doesn't have the hoppiness that springs through, the Hitachino. But you know what? I like it. It's actually, I will drink this again. It's actually a delicious beer. I love it.
It's very syrupy.
It does have a bit of a...
it's very honey and syrupy.
Yes.
Yeah, very honey, and it's similar in color. So
well, let's open the next one. But you're gonna have to tell me about this. We're actually going down Asia. So we've started, Hitachino is Japan.
yes, correct.
So now we're going to go down to Vietnam.
We're basically going along a tsunami or an earthquake fault line.
Let's just hope a nice a yacht.
A yacht.
Can we use a yacht?
Actually, Thailand would probably be further north than Vietnam.
But we're coming down the coast, so we're hugging the coastline. So we hit Vietnam first.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. We're going to talk about the beer.
Okay, so let's move on to this beer. It's the beer crafted in Vietnam Jasmine IPA.
Yes.
By Pasteur Street Brewing Co. India Pale Ale with Jasmine. I have no idea what to expect.
So basically, I did probably one of the greatest things I've ever done in my entire life.
Wow.
We went on a rugby tour to Vietnam, and via the Google machine and TripAdvisor, we found a Vespa tour that goes to 4 or 5 craft breweries. You don't ride the Vespa yourself.
I was gonna say.
You've got a driver, a rider, whatever you call it, and you dress in bright orange, and we were all in our team kit, and we traveled through the bustling streets of Vietnam, which is like taking your life into your own hands. There's like 17 million scooters on the streets of Ho Chi Minh City at pretty much any one time. So the first brewery we went to was actually owned by a South African guy, an expat. Beers weren't great, but his business is the Vespa business.
Okay.
So we then went to another brewery. We didn't go to a brewery, we went to a brew pub. It's basically like the beer house and more banana jam than beer house type of thing. Mm-hmm. Run by Americans, and they're political exiles. They left America so that they didn't have to be under Donald Trump, believe it or not. And they started this brew pub, and it's phenomenal. The one has got 55 taps, and they do a food pairing with pretty much all 55 beers.
That must be massive.
Yeah, the beers aren't great. All the beers
55.
aren't great. 55 taps.
And you tried all 55, I'd imagine.
We got close. And then this place called Pasteur Street Brewery, which is like...
The one we have now?
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere. It is world class. It is we don't even have an inner city grungy, hipstery type of place like this. It's a long, narrow, thin building. It had a rooftop bar. It had a cool, like, brew pub downstairs. And apparently they're going big. They've built a massive plant just outside of Ho Chi Minh, and they're now distributing all over into the beach areas.
Good for them.
And then our last brewery we went to was also a brew pub, and it's an Irish guy. And in true Irish style, he had a great Irish red ale. He had a great porter.
One of my favorite styles.
Yeah, so he was really good, but he doesn't sell out. He doesn't distribute, he doesn't sell off consumption. So it's very clever the way they do it there, is you have to come into their venues, and our venues could learn a lot from it because they're geared super, it would be the equivalent of Beer House being owned by Saggy Stone.
Sure.
You know, but with 55 taps, not just their own 8. So, yeah.
Cheers. Well, getting some nice hop notes.
Jeez, I'm getting that floral from the jasmine plants or the jasmine flowers. So if you think about it,
I'm just going to see what they say here. They say the Citra hops imbue the taste with a citrus blast and jasmine flowers.
I can smell those white jasmine flowers.
I must admit, I'm not too familiar with rolling around in the fields of jasmine.
No, you'll recognize it. I'll just Google it quickly, a picture of it when you see it. It's actually very bitter. I think
it's not as there's not a lot of body, but it's not in a bad way.
I think if you think what they're trying to do, they're trying to use something that's almost endemic to their country, like we use rooibos and buchu and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So jasmine.
I wanted to ask you one last question, just to stay with the.
Sure, you recognize that.
I recognize that. Just to stay with the theme of festival beer, and we can move on after that. What would you do differently next year? 3 things. It doesn't have to be 3 things, but what comes to mind? And it can be also in a perfect world.
So in totality, our Saturdays are phenomenal, and we don't want to change it. Our Sunday family day is growing from strength to strength, and Lucy wrote a very good article saying once that the best thing that ever happened to Festival of Beer was my partners and them all having children. So that was obviously one thing. Our Friday, which 5 or 6 years ago used to be an epic evening, seems to be not on the decline, because we definitely had more people there this year than last year. But I don't think people go out for those after-work drinks anymore. I don't think maybe they drive a car to work and they're too scared to drive home, you know, and there's Uber, but you still have to leave your car at work. Still not a lot of people catch the MyCity bus. So that is one thing that we'd like to change. I think we're going to go back to the brewers and have a little debrief and consult them again and hear their feedback on what they thought, you know, worked and didn't work. I think our food stands are amazing. I think our pricing, the way we did it this year with super early bird.
I did have a pulled pork sandwich from one of the brewers, from one of the food stands.
Southern Smoke, world class.
And I'd lost myself.
Yeah. You should try his chicken wings. Different, next level chicken wings. So yeah, but I mean, it's also guys like you. I mean, you have been both sides of it. You know, you've been a staff member of a brewery, working behind stands, sweating, pulling pints, listening to feedback, seeing drunk people, seeing people try your beer for the first time. And you've also been on the other side of it, just enjoying 3 days and chilling out and
sometimes
tasting.
Both. Sometimes giving brewers a break and then
exactly. So I mean, that's what we want. The other thing that, I mean, you got to consider in a country like South Africa is our financial situation. You know, people complain about the price of it, but they're importing hops, they're importing malt. And if you look at stuff like the GABF, the Great American Beer Festival, and Camera, their big festival in the UK, I think it's in and around London or Nottingham.
Sure. Yeah.
They don't pay anyone except in beer. I follow it, obviously, you know, being in the industry, and they literally go, hi, looking for volunteers to man the Saggy Stone stand. We will pay you in beer and meals, you know, hi. Whereas in South Africa, that's another cost. The brewer's too cool for school to go and pour beers. He gets paid a salary by the owner of the brewery who doesn't make beers. And they just tell one of their members of staff or one of their apprentices or someone, guys, go handle the stand. Here's your stock. Make sure you get some change. And we want you to come back with some money in your pockets. And I think, again, that's a very different way to how we should be doing it,
Well, I think I mentioned to you when we had a sit-down and a beer 2 weeks ago, but I like that you've started to evolve into this, and from what you've told me, 3 days is what you, in terms of maximizing your costs, 3 days is the most efficient way. Are you a little bit cold there?
No. Stretching my shirt, my stomach.
So 3 days is the most efficient for you in terms of the venue and costing. But I like how you've moved. Saturday's the big party day. Sunday's the family day. Friday, it's gone from the after-work drinks, from the corporate kind of vibe. But maybe there is something there where you can start saying to brewers, let that be the nerd day or the craft beer fan day, where it's just the brewers come in and that's where they release their special beer. So that's, if the people who want to learn, I don't know,
So to answer you on that is, even if you didn't really ask a question, is we used to
I'm always asking questions.
And I'm always answering. We used to start that day at 12.
I remember.
Yeah, we started at 12.
At 11.
And at 11, there was a queue of the beer nerds.
Yep.
With their iPads and their cell phones and their beer advocates and their booklets and their rating and wearing the same shirts. I survived Cape Town Festival of Beer and I survived this and that was the day to drink all the limited edition beers that might be finished by the Saturday or the Sunday and to discuss it and to do your ratings and to see if you could polish off 100 or 200 beers. So then the brewers told us, which is a good thing, that their breweries were getting busier and their tap rooms were getting busier. So 12 o'clock's very difficult to make. So we said, cool, make it 3 o'clock this year. So for the first time in 9 years, we started at 3. And what happened? Some brewers still came late. Some brewers still said that they were too busy. Some brewers still sent other people. And that's a big thing for us, you know. So we even had some prize winners who didn't show face, because they had staff working there. So from my point of view is people need to start seeing the event for what it is in terms of an industry-related event, an expo, an exhibition, more than a beer festival to sell as many beers as you can and to make money. So if you walk around and your next door neighbor makes a pretty crap beer, but you got a really good beer and it's in the same style, you should be offering him advice or he should be asking for advice. If there's someone who's got a microbiology degree or a chemical engineering degree or studied at the Brewing Institute or whatever, I can tell you now that Oak knows more than you. He does. Maybe you can slate him and say he only knows how to brew lagers but he knows more than you. He knows more about,
And it brings in that thing, that tally of the token counts. Who got the most tokens?
Yeah.
And I understand there's a pros and cons. Obviously you don't want to show who came last on the lists. But I think, in terms of growing the industry, it might actually not be a bad thing. I think, in high school, they didn't show the team that came the bottom for encouragement. You don't want to get them
best losers.
You don't want them to feel like, flip, I came 7th out of 7th. There was only 7 houses. We never came 7th, just so you know.
No.
But I think in terms of a professional industry, if you are coming stone last in terms of tokens, you've got to kind of like smell the coffee and or smell the IPA or the lack thereof in your beer and be
or too much thereof.
Yeah. And just be like, okay, something is wrong. So maybe you should be sharing that information. Maybe it should go to just the brewers and be classified as private information. I don't know. But there is obviously something that we need to work at. And I think, it comes down to the final line of beer getting better.
Yeah, and that's what we want.
Look, and look, if we look back 5 years, I'm sure you can see, like, when you first started the Festival Beer, there were some shitty beers. The majority were maybe shitty.
Yeah.
But now, it is actually quite a positive thing to see that maybe there's 1 or 2 stands that just beers weren't up to scratch rather than 10.
Sure. And your entry-level beer guy is now, I don't think, a Paul from Kennel Brewery or a Buurman Brouwerke or a Skalk and Christoph from Gallows Hill, who were homebrewers and decided to take their hobby up. Your entry-level brewery now is an oak with a few bucks in the bank who hires a brewer who would have started one of those things. Plus, he gives him all the right tools and equipment. And he says, make me a beer that's going to make me money.
Yes.
As a return on my investment. And
what equipment do you need? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think if you look at it like that, the industry has definitely gone to the good. And your entry-level beers now are definitely better than they were. But there are a couple of stands at this year's festival that were abysmal. Fortunately for some of them, their branding was very good, or their initiative behind the bar and their personalities and that sort of stuff. But their beer wasn't up to scratch.
You'll tell me after the show, right?
Yeah. And
then, ladies and gentlemen, you can you can find out on Twitter who Martin Tucker.
Yeah, no, and I mean, look, it's a big thing. It's serving a substandard. And I know, for example, that we haven't really had this debate or discussion, but the Clarence Beer Festival, for example, asks people to send in samples.
Yeah.
And they actually have don't know what you'd call it, the chutzpah to say, you don't have to come to the festival. Why not? No, you just don't have to come, And I don't know. I've never been told by them how it works or how you tackle it. But for me, that's a big and a gutsy step, because I would love to do that. Make no mistake. I think Clarence have the right idea by doing it, because it means that everyone's going to get to taste good beers. But how are they going to know what a bad beer is then if everything's good? So for us, I want people to be told by someone, whether it's an expert or just Joe Blogg's man in the street, but this is undrinkable.
Yeah.
Because then he's going to, if he hears it enough times, he's either going to throw in the towel, or he's actually going to go and take his cap off and go to a master brewer like a Wolfgang or
even
JC.
Matt
or
from Saggy Stone, he's done some studying.
Exactly. And then he's going to say, listen, guys, people tell me my beer's going sour too easily, or this was flat, or there wasn't the right, consistency in the initial processes that we did. And
what can I do?
What can I do? How can I improve?
And I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10, those people mentioned would be like, let me offer you my services for free. Let me come visit your brewery and help you out. Because I think they've also got the attitude of, if one brewer goes down, it's not good for his business.
No, it's a sinking ship.
It's a fine line between being inclusive and exclusive with the whole festival, because on one hand, it's you really are putting Clarence Beer Festival showcasing the best in that area, or they're not letting any beers that are subpar.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, some festivals just like, let's bring everyone in so we can all kind of grow the industry. But I think the days of launching a South African craft brewery and, having more than 4 or 5 bad batches to start with, I think that's unforgivable now. When we started, and I still believe this, every brewery that opens, their first batch will be bad.
Yeah.
And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, that's why you must always give a brewer a second, even a third chance.
Or their first batch is excellent, and that's what got people to drink their beer, and then their second, third, and fourth are crap. But the other thing is, and it's happened to a brewery that I've dealt with a lot of times, and I know the guys, is their processes were perfect, their brewing technique was perfect, but their hygiene was shocking. So they got an infection in the brewery, and that's from not cleaning.
That's such a pity.
So their beer was just going sour. It was going off after a few days. And it just took one expert, exactly, not a HACCP guy, not a health person. It took a brewer to go in and geez, the seams on your tanks aren't flush. They haven't been sanded down or ground down properly. And that means all the yeast and the leftovers can get stuck in there, and that's going to cause no ways. And now the beer's 100% and it's got massive shelf life. But if you didn't get that person in...
Let's crack open our final beer of the Asian experience. And that is from my journey to Thailand from Wizard Beer. It's an IPA. I'm not sure if you recall why this little sticker, or looks like ladies and gentlemen, it looks like an old stamp.
Fake beers.
A postage stamp. This is the imported seal that they give for all beers that are imported into Thailand, because you cannot brew a beer in Thailand unless you are brewing more than 10 million liters a year.
So where does it get brewed?
So it has to be brewed in Cambodia or Vietnam, and then they import it in, which is quite interesting. So if you want to do a craft beer, you have to get Singer, one of the big boys, to brew for you, or you import it. So it's not cheap. This one, this bottle of 340ml IPA cost me probably 100 rand.
Wow. I went to Cambodia in 2013 and there was nothing except, I think it's called Kingdom Lager and Cambodia Lager. So that's great news that Cambodia is now starting to brew craft beers that are being re-imported back into Thailand.
So, okay. I think we've spoken at length about festival beer, and I think we can kind of pivot into what the industry is thinking now and what's happening in the industry. I think, let's first have a sniff. It smells decent. Let me have a sip.
It's like a flavored glass of water.
It's not bad.
There's no body. There's no
mouthfeel. There's less body than the first one, but in a strange kind of way, there's more hop.
Yes, definitely in the finish, there's 100% more hops. And on the nose, it's soft.
No, this beer's only about 2 months old, it shouldn't make a difference, but it is more like a pale ale.
Yeah,
it's more. You'd expect Devil's Peak to make a pale ale like this. This is
sessionable,
light, sessionable, but it's got a good oomph of hops that kind of hit you.
Devil's Peak had a great little session IPA that they had at the festival on one of their limited edition taps, which went down very well. So much so that a couple of people who are staunch anti-IPAers were drinking it and thought it was just a First Light or something.
Well, I think I struggle to remember their names, but I think it was Watergate No Enemy. Their
Richmond Hill.
No, it was Devil's Peak. Their barrel-aged stout, 12% aged in a Pinot Noir barrel. JC from Devil's Peak, you'll forgive me if I forget this, but it was a 12% beer. But that, to me, was a remarkable beer. It was. Look, when you go around the festival, I know we're coming back to the festival, and nothing wrong with that. When you go around the festival and you've tried IPAs and this beer and that beer, you come across the 12% stouts.
Yeah.
And it knocks your socks off. That for me was one of my favorites. My second favorite is coming up now. But speaking of Devil's Peak, I wanted to get your thoughts. It's been, what are we now? It's been about 10 days since Devil's Peak had a bit of a whoopsie. Let's call it that. In terms of a marketing campaign where they released an ad on social media and on mainstream media.
Sunday Times.
There was some newspaper adverts where, in fairness, the wording could have been different. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I think it was something along the lines of, at least there is still one great South African brewery Martin, something along those lines?
Yeah, it was. There is another little tagline on the left-hand side of the ad. I'm trying to remember what it was.
But basically, I think, in a nutshell, I think a lot of the craft brewers, or everyone besides Heineken and SAB, saw this ad, and I think they took offense to it. Well, some brewers did take offense to it. As I said before, I think maybe the wording could have been a little bit different. But at the end, I understood where they were trying to tackle. I understood that it wasn't a dig at their own craft industry, at their, and I'm going to say it, their younger brothers and sisters, the people who they do collabs with, the people who they enjoy experimenting with and drinking their beers.
Smaller brothers and sisters.
Yeah, but it was more a dig at the king of beers. The AB InBev, the Budweiser, who's tackling our shores, who's taking over retail space. And I understood that. But unfortunately, can you just show me Sunday Times, bottom of the sports section, South Africa's premium beer. Yeah, that's fine.
So from my side, I'm actually...
Yes, let's.
I'm quite heavily involved with Devil's Peak and have been for many years. For 8 years, I used to distribute their beer from when JC used to carry it through on his own to the biscuit mill with a 50-litre keg that he'd bought from the old Polana Brauhaus. So again, the beer industry comes, swings in circles. And I've seen them grow. I've watched them get new investments. I've watched them get foreign money. I've watched them grow some more. I've watched them get new investments. Watched them grow some more. Watched them hire new people, and then, been a victim of their growth in terms of having had to separate from them. But the one constant is they've always made unbelievable beer. And if anyone worth their salt says or disagrees with that, they actually don't know what they're talking about. So taking away from the business side of things and any issues there, their beer has still been consistent and consistently excellent.
Yeah.
The ingredients top notch, their styles brilliant. And now they've obviously launched big time into, tap rooms and non-consumption type of stuff. So from my side, the true test of the oldest brewery is actually Mitchell's. Because South African Breweries is no longer South African. It's owned by a Belgian-Brazilian corporation called AB InBev. Mitchell's is actually South Africa's oldest brewery. But Mitchell's has now been swallowed up into Devil's Peak. So is it really? It's still South African owned, but it's got partners that are from other countries. And so is it really?
Yeah.
So then we can take it one step and go, is Boston South Africa's oldest microbrewery, or is Birkenhead? But one of the Birkenhead's owners is English. So then we go to all these definitions of what constitutes a craft brewery and a local craft beer and all of that. So from my side, Troy, I just want beer to grow. T-bone. I want beer to grow, and I want it to be consistently good. So if you've got the money to throw a massive campaign like Devil's Peak have tried to do, and to do aggressive pricing, so be it. Maybe it lights a fire under the arse of the rest of the industry, or they do what a Luke Dale Roberts at the Test Kitchen has done. He started selling meals for 800 or 1,000 rand. This is what you get. You can't choose off my a la carte menu. You can't do this. This is what you get. You pay this. Now I think it's 2,500 rand per person for just a sit-down meal in the Test Kitchen. And he's winning, top 50 restaurants of the year. He's winning South African restaurants of the year. And I bet you 1 billion people probably told him, no, you can't do it, There's giant restaurants like Marble in Johannesburg that seat 500 people at a massive per head spend.
At lunchtime.
Yeah. At lunchtime. So from my point of view is, if you've got balls enough to do it, then do it. I think Saggy Stone going all into cans was another great ballsy move,
Yeah.
I think Jack Black leaving Boston and Darling leaving Boston and opening their own multi-million rand, breweries was other gutsy moves. I think someone who spends money on bringing in a beer that's going to be big, like a Brewdog or a Liefmans or a Triple Carmelit or something from Belgium, there's no market for it here. It's converted from euros. That's also brave. So we should be encouraging that. But again, people take it personally. They see the ad and they go, it shouldn't be like this. So I saw the campaign that Mad Giant started, and it's very cool. And obviously they got a lot of support from everyone else. And then Devil's Peak came out with a social media retort, saying we're all for this and that and the other.
Yeah.
So it's good. It creates a conversation. It might have done the exact job that Devil's Peak wanted it to do. But from my side, as long as the beer industry grows and as long as there's good beer going out there, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I could get into a whole different discussion in terms of BrewDog and similar kind of line that they're playing. And I did compare Devil's Peak to BrewDog because with BrewDog they started a TV network, they started an airline company, they started a hotel, stuff that got a lot of flack from their fans, from their true fans, or from their investors, or people who just in the category of drinking their products. But I don't know. From my point of view, I see what they're doing. They still have their fan base, and they're still making great beer. And if they make one shitty beer out of 100, so be it. But in terms of their weird ideas, they're trying to infiltrate that mainstream market.
Yeah.
And they want their beer. They want an IPA to become. It sounds horrible, but they want IPA to become mainstream. They want a person who drinks their Budweiser to be able to go into the shop and be like, maybe I'll have an IPA today. Whether it's brewed by AB InBev or whoever, Heineken or BrewDog. But the point is to grow the pie, to get more people drinking different beers rather than just a light fizzy lager. And I kind of see Devil's Peak doing something similar where they do have great beers like Watergate No Enemy, 12% barrel aged, which satisfies taste buds like mine. But then they still have a light lager, a light pale ale, their first light, which are incredibly sessionable, but are trying to push to that market. That's why I brought them up, because with their labels, everyone was complaining that their labels are not so boring. I say everyone, but people who speak to me. But they've done that for a very specific reason, for which I just mentioned.
Well, I mean, again, if you take it from the rands and cents and the pure literage, I still don't think Devil's Peak products sell as much as a Jack Black. But it seems like everyone jumped on Jack Black's back, and now, they've changed to let's jump on Devil's Peak's back. And I think an aggressive pricing strategy is great, because it is going to put your beer in the hands of the mass markets who said they couldn't afford it. And then they are going to let, their taste buds do the talking. Although I go and talk to a bottle store owner, customer of mine, 10 times a week, 20 times a week, whatever, however many stores I visit. And if I stand there for half an hour, during a busy purchasing period, you'll still see the craft beer fans who chirp everyone else on the side buying their 6-pack of Castle Light or their crate of Castle Light and 3 craft beers, or their Vintux or Savannahs. And I love it when I sit with Wolfgang on a Sunday morning and we're all hungover at the festival and Wolf wants to drink a cider. Like he's a master brewer from Germany. And he's got a Savannah in his hand. That's what it's all about. It's not about being a snob. It's not about that's my opinion on it. And exactly like you said, there's so many people who whisper in everyone's ears. But I don't think it's bad for the industry.
That is, just to move on, I think the one thing that does kind of like put hairs on the end of my ears, or just doesn't irritate me, but I can spot it, and I can spot bullshit, is when reps or people who work for a brewery are brand loyal and will only drink their brand and will be loyal to the last drop.
Until they change jobs.
And I think that's a very old school way of thinking. That's a very old mainstream lager or mainstream beer kind of mentality. Got a nice little helicopter.
T-Bone's helicopter's coming to pick him up. That's how well the show's doing. Talking about the hairs on your ears, it is a great point having to deal with many reps. Is, hi there, I work for so-and-so and we're the best beer in the world and that other beer is the shittest beer in the world. They changed jobs 6 months later and
they changed the attitude.
I really learned a lot more now and I realized that this beer is actually the best beer in the world and the one I was working for before is the shittest beer in the world. So I just don't listen. I let my own taste buds do it and I let the market tell me. You can still go to a bottle store that's got a old Greek or Portuguese chap who doesn't even know what craft beer is, and the first thing he says to you is what they're selling at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's all he wants to know. He actually couldn't care whether it's an IPA or a stout or a Weiss. He just wants to know what's selling. And that's, again, if it's selling, it means people like it.
We're moving on to our final beer, and that is something that's just kind of taken Cape Town by storm since it was released. I think we had this when we went to Fraser's Folly at his spring festival, and it's the Wild Raspberry barrel-aged sour beer blended with real fruit. Sitting at 7.2%. I think this beer kind of took everyone's attention because it was piercing, not in a horrible way, but it really did. It cuts through when you've been drinking through 70 beers.
Yeah.
This.
I drank a lot of this 2 weekends ago.
How did your mouth feel the next day?
I don't think I can say that on the radio or on the podcast. But it is 7.2%. So maybe we'll talk about how beers at the festival over 9 years have evolved and what the trends are. But just from my point of view, we saw a lot more sour beers this year and barrel-aged beers. And this is by far probably the best combination. Not necessarily the best beer, but I think the raspberry and it being barrel-aged and sour is...
I do want to give a special shout-out because I did judge the Best of Show on the Saturday morning. I think, yes, it was the Stellenbosch. They had I think it was a sour Weiss. It
was also a barrel-aged sour.
I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. But it was a nice halfway point between, say, a beer like this, which is ultimate, very sour, and then something that was just a regular drinking beer. It had subtle hints. It was actually one of my favorite beers.
This is lip-puckeringly sour.
But I'm going to have a sip.
So the other thing about why this is a good beer is because it's completely new to 99.997% of the entire population. You can tell the sort of scientific reasons behind it, but the stuff that makes wine go off is left in the barrels, and it's filled with a style of beer. JC uses Saison for his Vin Saison and his barrel-aged stuff. This, I believe, is just Fraser's straight pale ale with some syrup added and some, I think, maybe real berry as well. But it's what's left in the barrel that makes it go sour.
Yeah.
And so many people just wouldn't have tasted this, or if they have tasted it, they literally think their beer's off. But this is the style that it's intended to be, and this is a brilliant example. Not to mention the wrapping and the labels are
phenomenal,
world class. Fraser,
so for people
cheers to you, Fraser.
If you obviously can't see, but it's a brown bottle. But what makes it special? It's a plain brown bottle, but it's wrapped in white, almost fish paper, newspaper paper.
Yeah.
Very
newsprint, I think they call it.
Newsprint paper. So it's the thin paper, but it's got the beautiful red print of the berries on the outside. Fraser is a bit of a mad scientist, somewhat farmer, somewhat
proper nutty professor.
And you just need to go visit him at his brewery to see how passionate and crazy he is when it comes to making these beers, because he talks about the barrels that he's got. He talks about how he is experimenting and he is trying to do this beer. I remember last time we went, he was like, yeah, I'll try this one. Oh, but it's not ready. Or this one, yeah, but I'm not too happy with it. And then he comes out with this one, which is just, like I said, when you've been trying 70 different lagers or different beers, this one kind of cuts through everything.
So integrity is a very big part of that, because it is like you said, if your beer's not up to scratch, toss it.
Yeah.
But there's still so many guys who I've got to make that money back, you know. I spend money on yeast and hops and malt and water and electricity and staff and, you know, but Fraser is the type of guy who I think, this batch didn't do it, replace it immediately, toss it down the drain. You know, and we don't get as many of those people as we should have in our industry. It's really good.
I'll have a little bit more. Can you believe it? We've been talking for an hour now, so it's time to kind of wrap up. Thank goodness we finished in our beers here. Got some rapid fire questions. Like I said before, you don't have to answer in rapid fire answers. You can give as much as you want. But in your opinion, what's next for the industry?
I think everyone tries to copy each other. So when King's Blockhouse did well, everyone tried to make IPAs. Riot made another good one, and King's Blockhouse and Riot have stuck by it. So pale ales were next, Vice beers were next. Vice beers were in the beginning too. Then dark beers the last couple of years, then sours. So I think when someone stops copying other people, that's what's next for the industry. You know, if sours are doing well, you talking about them, Lucy's talking about them, they're winning awards. Brilliant. Keep winning awards. But maybe you're the best Vice maker on the planet. Stick with your Vice. Make a different type of Vice, you know. And then cans. Cans are massive. All over the world, cans are huge. It's the second purest form of beer after a keg. It's never seen sunlight. Don't believe all the bullshit and hype about it's got a metallic taste, because then you don't know what you're talking about. I think cans are going to become big. And then lastly, I think tap rooms are the way forward. If legislation allows it, I think every brewery worth its salt should have a tap room, or a tap room in a different suburb or in a different city. But they don't necessarily have to think that they must be on shelves in every single city. Rather open another tap room, ship up a tanker full of your lager, or brew it there, sell it on the premises, make good margin, make great food, and you'll be bringing a lot more beer to people closer to you.
What's your most let me say that again. What's your most underrated style? Or what beer do you think doesn't get enough justice?
Definitely dark beers, both stouts and porters. Some world class examples of those in South Africa, but because we're a predominantly sunny country and definitely a lager country, they just don't get enough airtime. Franschhoek Stout's phenomenal. Fraser's Folly, Moor Coffee, Triggerfish's Empowered Stout. There used to be Vampire Stout from Red Sky. Citizen has got a Pacifist, a Winter Porter that's superb. And there's a number of others that make dark beers. JC makes some super strong ones. And Darling's Barrel Aged Stout came second overall at the whole festival.
Yeah, the Black Mist is also not bad.
So I'd say that. And then the other thing is, I'd like to see happen, because I also love booze. I love all booze. I love wine. I like spirits. I love rum. We don't have enough bars or venues or restaurants showcasing beers and beer pairings and what they do for food. So again, use stout in your chocolate brownies. You know, use Guinness if you have to. Make a steak and Guinness pie. And I think when beers like these ones that we've been tasted start getting offered with something else, I think that's also going to change the game. You know, people will start to appreciate them a lot more. I'd love to have this with a strawberry berry coulis on top of a vanilla ice cream, and this sour, you know, for dessert, shared amongst us. So those are the things that I like to see. I don't particularly think one style, but I definitely stouts and porters are super underrated in South Africa. What do you think? Which do you think are the most underrated?
I'm not used to someone asking me questions. One that does jump to mind is a Kolsch. Why a Kolsch? Because a Kolsch is the stepbrother of a lager.
Yes.
And I think when people start drinking, I think why it's good is that if people start drinking a Kolsch, you know, if there's a Kolsch at a bar, you can play it two ways, you know, as a break. So you can sell it to the bar or wherever as a retailer. This is a lager, but it's called a Kolsch.
Yeah.
But it's a lager. So people will drink the lager. But, you know, when people start saying, oh, I'm drinking a Kolsch, is that related to a Grolsch? Is it a Pilsner? What? Oh, it's an actual beer style.
Yeah.
It's a lager. So when you start getting people to talk about that and at least try and understand, at least you hope people try and understand that. But at the moment, I'm liking Kolsch. And I do agree with you, dark beers.
Who makes a good Kolsch in South Africa? Because technically you also aren't allowed to call it a Kolsch. Is
it restricted
yeah,
like that?
So it's the same as champagne, and that it's only allowed to be from Cologne, which is...
craft brewers are
I think it
rebels.
is.
I don't think they need to...
You can brew it in that style, but I don't think you can actually say Kolsch on the bottle.
Stevie from Shackleton's,
Yes.
he made a cask Kolsch, if I'm correct.
Did it lager
I'm
and
not-
ferment before it was in the barrel?
Don't quote me on that. I'm not correct a lot of the time, ladies and gentlemen. But when I had his beer, it was actually really well made because I've been lucky enough to have a Kolsch overseas, and I thought it was almost spot on.
It is. It's a very good beer to drink a lot of. They serve them in like little 175 or 200 mils. It never gets warm, and you just knock them back, and your tab just keeps going up and up and up and up.
Last question. What's your favorite beer at the moment, local and overseas? And don't just say something that don't worry about who you favoring or anything like that.
Yeah,
just something that you just...
I drink a bucket load of Devil's Peak Pale Ale.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've got the perfect blend of hoppy hops and not so hoppy hops, with a good balance, you know. So it gives you that bitterness for a hop head. But if you're like me and you just like something that, you know, gives you a good taste and is refreshing and, you know, leaves you thinking about it a bit, then Devil's Peak Pale Ale. I'm a massive fan of Weiss beers. I love Weiss beers. I love dark beers. Fortunately, we've got good guys who make great Weisses, so that's another go-to.
Any international brands that stick out for you at the moment?
So I'll be honest, I like to support my local guys.
Good stuff.
Purely because of that. There are some beers that I'd love to get here. Probably my favorite one is a thing from Brooklyn Brewery, their Summer Ale. It comes in a really cool, like bluish green can. And you literally, it's got grenadilla and pineapple and guava, and it's like drinking a Fanta or a cream soda. It's just got that Moorishness, you know. It doesn't even feel like you're drinking a beer. It's
Except
really...
you wake up the next morning with and depends on your head.
I think it's only about 4%, so it's not that bad. And then I love Guinness. I drink if I
bought a Guinness. I almost bought a Guinness in a can.
Yeah, if I go to a pub, if I go to the Vasco or Fireman's, my first beer of the day is probably going to be a Guinness or two. It's just unfortunate that we still don't know how to look after it properly in South Africa.
Is it a pity?
And yours, Troy? What are T-Bone? What are yours again? What are your beers of the moment?
Sure. Because you just said Guinness. Guinness comes to mind. But yeah, I would. If there was a Guinness on tap at a place, it would be very hard to say no. Unfortunately, the price has kind of jumped up close to the 50 Rand mark.
Yeah.
Which wasn't always the case. But I will, if I'm going to be drinking, I'll be drinking that. What else? Maybe a Pilsner. Maybe,
which one?
It really depends. Even Hansa Pilsner, I don't mind.
Yeah, I enjoy Hansa. I used to be a massive Castle fan. And almost in my old age, I've moved towards Hansa Pilsner and Black Label.
But, okay, we could talk a whole nother episode on this, but I just went to the Cape Town Sevens, and Castle had sponsored.
Yes.
the 7th, which
It's gone my nose.
Oh, is that from?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Which is great. Not negating that. That they have the money and that's great. The issue that I found was that they only had Castle Lager. They had Castle Zero. They had
Flying Fish
one Flying Fish and then one Brutal Fruit.
Brutal Fruit.
But in terms of alcohol, that was it. And I think that's wrong. I think it's obviously, the SAB guy will probably say to me, well, when you're paying for it, you can do what you want.
You can choose whatever you want.
But I think...
So SAB's version of giving an option is having Brutal Fruit and Flying Fish.
And I just think, if you want people to... I suppose they don't want people to experiment. But I mean, after... I must have had about 6 castles, and I was just, that's it. I'm done.
That's all.
I'm done. I can't have any more.
Yeah.
If there was a Pilsner, great. Or if there was anything different, Black Label, even a Black Label, you can taste the difference. But unfortunately, there wasn't that variety, and that upset me. So I think
couldn't agree with you more.
I think the days need to change. The days are changing, where the bigger guys need to actually be like, no, let's give them a different option. Also, I understood that you can only take 2 beers out.
Yeah.
And in Dubai, you could actually take cans out and you get an ice pack. And anyway,
the crowds are probably a lot different to ours.
Very different from ours.
Yeah.
Another discussion for another day. Martin, we've been speaking for an hour and 15 minutes. It's great to have someone like you on the show, someone with so much knowledge. And I suppose you keep all that knowledge in your beard.
I just love beer. I think there's a lot of people with more knowledge than me. I just love beer.
And I think that's, you hit the nail on the head there. You just love beer. I think we all love beer. And at the end of the day, I think maybe that can be our message. As long as everyone who's in this industry, as long as you just love beer, I think that's what's going to propel things forward. I can see my wife calling, so I'm going to have to call it a day. Martin, thank you very much. And let's have you back again.
Thank you very much for having me, Troy. Next time we'll bring some more beers.
Cool. To all the listeners, ciao, ciao. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to the show. One last thing before you take off. I've created a Patreon account. What is Patreon? Patreon is a website dedicated to artists creating content, and it gives them a platform to be able to get paid for their content. So no pressure to you guys, to my friends and my fans, but this kind of thing does help me to continue to grow and to continue to give you good content and to actually take this brand and what I'm doing to the next level. And I've got so many plans that I'm so excited to bring to you. So if you have a few minutes and if you have an extra buck to spare, I'd really appreciate you just going checking it out. But you can go check it out at Patreon and just type in #BeerTime and you'll see something there. I really appreciate it. Thank you.